So one of the hardest things in sewing is to set in a sleeve without getting any puckers in it. I'll show you how. Coming up. Hey, Chanel here, bringing you weekly videos to help you get better and better with your fashion sewing and be more creative too. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. You'll never miss another video. All right, I have a few tricks up my sleeve to show you how to sew in a sleeve. How to sew in a perfectly eased in sleeve cap. A little tricky, and I find a lot of my students have a little difficult time with this, although I show them a couple tricks and it's kind of fun actually. Well, sewing should be fun, right? So why it's tricky is this is the sleeve shape. It goes up around there, and it is expected to fit into an armsye, which goes like that. So you have the shape that goes like that, and then the outer shape. It's very confusing. So let me show you a couple real quick tricks, and we'll get this trip started. All right, first we prepare the sleeve, and I have a half a sleeve cut here, and the notches we have clipped. So the double notches on a sleeve mean it goes to the back of the armsye, and the single it goes to the front. These actually, this whole sleeve is not actually even. The back usually picks up a little bit more here, because if you think about when you're moving your arms or your back gets wider as your arms are going forward. So it actually helps give you a little bit more room. The front usually dips in a little bit more. So those two notches are really important. And then you'll always find a big circle right at the shoulder point. And I like to put a notch here because when you're going around, sometimes you'll lose that circle, but you can always find the notch right there. And then this one, this pattern actually, this is an older pattern, it says ease in fullness. Nowadays they don't seem to say that. A lot of times they'll have little dots here to kind of tell you where to ease in the fullness. I'll just do like little nips right here to kind of show me where it's at, and that's you can see it right there. So now what I'm going to do is take this to the sewing machine and put an ease stitch in here that will kind of just gently help it make a kind of a cup a little bit, and then we'll sew the side seams together here, and then we can set it into the armsye. Okay, to get a ease stitch on here, I'm going to be sewing on the right side of the fabric. Well, you can't tell which one is here, but and then it wants you to ease where those little dots are. I'm going to go a little bit, starting a little bit before that. I'm just going to kind of put the presser foot flowing right here. It's about 3/8 in. I just want to do it within my 5/8 right here. And I'm going to be putting my finger on the back of the presser foot and holding the fabric so that the fabric crunches up into under the presser foot. I don't need to stretch, or how do you say, I don't need to reverse stitch or anything. I'm just going to let that fabric get all jumbled up into there. And I'm going to go from little notch to little notch. Here's my other notch here. Just go a little bit past. I'll pick it up. I try not to stretch that out. So I have just little tiny puckers right here. And you got to make sure you don't stretch it out, so it has a nice cap to it right there. All fabrics really are different. If it's a loose weave, it might go too fast. You also don't want to have your stitches on a basting stitch either. So now I'm going to turn this right sides together, and you don't have to, on some patterns you don't have to sew the under seam on here, but I'll show you just in case. It's a little bit harder sometimes to sew this seam first, but I don't like it when you do the bodices and sew one long seam. I like to actually, and I think it fits a little bit better when you do it this way. I just run out seam off here, reverse stitch there. Don't really have to, it's just a sample. I reverse stitched here because you don't want this to come apart when you are trying to get that in. Now I'll go press this and then we'll set this in here, and I'm being very careful with this so I don't pull it. I'm not going to press it or anything, and we'll get this set into the armsye. Alright, I have a bodice sample right here. I got my front with the front notch here, the back with my little back notches here, shoulder seam, underseam. Also on the shoulder seam I did a video on how to sew a shoulder seam here, and I always put twill tape on them because it really gives a nice sturdy shoulder seam here, because a lot of these are not cut on a grain, right, on an exact grain anywhere, so it kind of wobbles, but the twill tape holds it down. So that's a check out that video. So I have my armhole ready, and then I have my sleeve ready. I'm also going to trim some of these here. I also pressed that seam open, and then I'm going to turn it right sides out, again without stretching my little gathers there. They look really good in there. Then I'm going to start with the underseam right here, find those two, match them up, and then put a pin there. And then next off I'm going to be finding that notch shoulder seam, that little shoulder part where the circle was. I put a notch instead, and I'm going to be finding that part there. So we got underseam and shoulder seam right there, so it's like half and half. And then I'm going to be matching up this notch here with each other. Sometimes these don't match up, but this one's matching really well. You also want to really make sure you don't pull this part here, because it's so easy to pull it, because a little bit of fabric ease in here really helps it be more comfortable. I'll put a couple pins there, and then match up the back with the double notches right there. Let's match them up good. Get a couple pins going there, hold that down. Sometimes using pins, a lot of pins here will help. Also, I pink the seams here, which will really help, because sometimes working all this, it starts to fray. And then I'm going to be pinning the other part of the sleeve cap here, and it's just fitting in really nicely right here. If you don't do that E-stitch, you have like a funny pull in there, so this really just helps it get that roundness that it needs. But you got to think your arms are round, and you want to kind of shape the fabric to go that way. All right, so this is all pinned in here. It's looking pretty good there. Now I'm just going to be starting to sew. I always like to start at the underseam here, the side seam, underseam. I'll start right there and then go around it and stop, and hopefully not get any puckers. Extra pins in there. Okay, to the sewing machine. All right, I think I'm going to put my seam guide on for the 5/8 because I don't have it marked right here. That means I'm going to have pin problems. And I'm going to start at the underseam. Put this down here. Take out my pin. Get it started there. I don't even have to reverse yet because I'm going to sew right over it. So here, take that pin out, and also making sure I don't have any puckers. Like right here, I can feel there's a pleat going to happen here. So I'm going to make sure it's smooth. You just use your fingers to make sure it's smooth. Line it up. I'm using the seam guide, touching the edge of this right here. Feel a pucker. Sometimes you pick that up, smooth out the pucker, make sure it's not happening. And just take it slow and think about working in quarters, kind of like segments at a time. The needle, like this machine, because the needle goes down, and I can just keep flopping the fabric back and forth. Now the goal with this is not to have any puckers in with this. That's where these eases are now. You can actually start getting them rubbed out a little bit. Make sure my shoulder seam is open. Feels bumpy. Something's going on in there. Oh, that's that twill tape. Okay. And keep going. Take the pins out. So you really got to get used to pins stabbing you. Don't even feel them anymore. Keep going. I like to use these big pins because I can get to them a little easier. Okay, I feel the pleat happening right here. That's always tends to be in the under part, so I'm just going to get right up to it. Work it out right here. If you put the needle into the fabric, you can move everything around without losing your spot. Okay, going around. This one's coming off a little bit. You want your raw edges together. Almost to the finish line. Coming off that way. Now I'll reverse it. Pick it up. Trim all that off. Let's see how we did here. Aha! Looking for puckers. Not seeing any. This is good. All right, I think I did it. The sleeve looks great. I think I did it. Now, an easy way to press a sleeve is to take a ham and get it in here like that. Make sure you press it all the right way. See if I do this up here. And then you get it your seams that way. Make sure your seams are towards the cap right here, and you can get in and really get into the cap like that. And get just that little seam part, and then it's really flat. So that is actually a really nice sleeve right there. Nice and smooth. That's what we're looking for. No little puckers. Job well done. Anyway, so give a sleeve, set-in sleeve a try. Just use muslin or just some cotton fabrics. Always easiest to try that way. Do a little pinking on there. It'll help. The shoulder seams sewn right will really help also. And practice that easing with your thumb behind the presser foot. Fabrics, the really loose weave ones just really take forever to ease. Some fabrics don't ever ease up really well at all. Some ease a lot, which is okay because you can always, pull it out. So the trick is to really just make it evenly distributed and then have like a nice little cap to it. So it has a roundness. The fabric has a roundness. So give it a shot. And if you have any comments or questions, please let me know in the comments below. And I'll get back to you real quick. And I'll see you in the next sew bit.